Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at working with setting up our CAN keypads. Process is pretty straightforward. There's lots of programming options here. I'm going to run through as many programming options as I can with setting up our Link CAN keypads. Let's jump in here and take a look at setting up and configuring our CAN keypad. There's, again, lots of details that we need to cover. First thing, we need to go and access the configuration settings so we can recognize the CAN keypad on our CAN network for the G4 Xbox that we're working with. So in this case, I can access the CAN setup window from two locations. We can go up here to ECU controls and go down into CAN setup, or alternatively, we can just jump into our CAN bus window that I've created here, and then we can go to our little gear wrench icon, and we can click on this, and this will open up our CAN setup window. In here, we can start to program all of our details. Now I'm working with a G4X Extreme box right now, and I'm also working with a 12 position 12 switch CAN keypad from Link. I'm trying to pair them together. Now on my G4X Extreme box, there's two CAN streams available. I'm only using one of the two CAN streams for this, and I have wired it into the B plug where the second CAN stream is located. Now I need to make sure that I'm configuring that and pointing the CAN stream to the right CAN channel or stream. There's two available. I need to go here under the CAN configuration, CAN module, and go here and point it to CAN 2. If I've wired it in alternatively to CAN 1, I would be selecting CAN 1. Now it's to note, depending on which Link G4X box you're working with, whether it's a plug and play application, so it's going to be a drop-in plug and play box, or it's going to be a wire-in box, you may have one or two CAN channels available. You have to pay attention to which CAN channel you're wiring into and making sure that you're selecting the correct CAN module here in your setup. And the next thing we need to do is go into our mode. In here, we want to select user defined when we're working with setting up a CAN keypad. We do have other options if we look all the way down here. These are going to be related to the OEM CAN networks. If we're trying to tie our G4X into that CAN network, these are going to be supported right in this drop-down menu. In this case, we'll select user defined. The next option we have here is bitrate. Bitrate is going to be the communication speed on your CAN bus network, whatever the CAN network you're working with here is going to be either 1 or 2. Now, what's important about this, all the devices that you're setting up on your CAN network, whether it's CAN 1 or CAN 2, have to have the same bit rate or communication speed. If you don't have them set the same, it'll cause problems and fault out on the CAN network, and it may not work at all. So in this case, setting up our CAN keypad, we can run with the default right here of 1 megabit per second. If you're working with something like an ECU Masters CAN keypad, those are set as a default of 500 kilobytes per second, or kilobit per second, I should say. So it'll depend on what particular CAN keypad you're working with. The manufacturer of that CAN keypad should specify what your bit speed or bit rate is going to be. In this case, I can leave it here at 1 megabit per second. Now we also have here under OBD, this is going to be off for a CAN keypad. We do have these ISO options here for CAN 1 or CAN 2. This is going to be specific working with an OBD type of functionality for an OEM vehicle if you're integrating this. We don't need to check this on. We'll leave it off for right now. It's not going to apply for a CAN keypad. The next thing we need to do is jump down here under our data, under channel. We have our different channels that we can work with. We can actually have 10 different CAN devices on our network here. So we have our network 1, network 2. We can have 10 devices tied into our network 2. And then if we clicked on CAN 1, we could have 10 more devices on our CAN 1. So we could have a tremendous amount of data being transmitted on our CAN network independent of each other. In this case, I'm going to go here to my data channel 1. We're going to go here and double click. We can see here on the mode is going to allow us to select what we're going to be doing with this particular channel. So on my channel 1, on my CAN network 2, I'm going to go down here and look at my various options. We see here we have our transmit user stream 1 all the way through 10. Then we have our transmit generic dash. We also have other dashes, so depending on what dash you're working with here, we have Microtech, we have dash 2, we have the Link Strata dash, that's going to be the Link dash they sell, which is really nice, the TFT display dash. And then we have down here the CAN keypads. We also have below that receiving user stream, so if you have something like that's going to be sending and broadcasting information. Let's say it's an EGT module that's CAN via CAN network. You could have a receive. The transmit would be if we're sending data to something from the G4X. So we have our different options here. The CAN keypad is what we want to choose in this particular option. We also see all the way at the bottom of our list here, link CAN lambda. It's going to be if you're running that link CAN lambda module, which we're going to be talking about in another tutorial. Let's go here to our CAN keypad 1, and we're going to select this. Now the transmit rate, this is going to be the frequency it's transmitting. This is going to be specific. We can have different transmission rates for the different devices we're working with, but remember the bit rate has to be the same between all of the modules. That's going to be very important. So the transmit rate here for a CAN keypad is going to be, if I'm taking a look down my list here, 10 Hertz. That's going to be the frequency it's going to transmit at. Now the CAN ID, this is how it distinguishes itself from all the other CAN modules on the CAN network. This ID is very specific and important. If we don't program this right, it won't recognize the CAN keypad when it's trying to pick this up. So if we're looking at this, this is going to be a CAN ID of 405 for a link CAN keypad. Now if you're working with an ECU Masters CAN keypad, this ID is going to be specified and it will be different. It's not going to be the same. Also, the transmit rate is likely to be different, and I know for a fact the bit rate is going to be different, and that's going to be defaulted at 500 kilobits per second. So in this case, we've set everything up here for the CAN keypad for link. There is a format, there's a normal and extended. The normal is what we traditionally are going to select. That's going to allow us to have the normal amount of space in our broadcast here for working with a CAN device. There is an extended, which gives us, I believe, 29 characters for programming. The normal, I believe, is 16 characters, if I remember correctly. So that's the difference between here. But on a CAN keypad, we're going to be selecting normal as our option here. And we're going to click apply so that the link now is going to recognize this. The next thing we're going to do is jump in here to our CAN devices. We want to recognize the CAN keypad on our network. So we're going to go here into CAN module, and we're going to go and say we're on our CAN module number 2. We want to find our device. Now your link has to be plugged in. You have to have it powered on. We have to have our CAN keypad wired in via CAN. We can see right now it's showing up here as Blink Marine PKP 2600 SI. This is who manufactures the link CAN keypads. So this is what's recognizing on my device network. This is what I want to choose. If you have a different CAN keypad, it'll have, let's say you're having a one that's a 6-channel or an 8-channel or something different. I'm not sure the exact different options they have from Link, but I know there's several different options for CAN keypads. You'll find that your CAN device here is going to be different. So it's found our CAN device. It's found one CAN keypad. We could have 2. In this case, I just have 1. So we're going to go and select this. Now we're going to go here to configure device. This is going to allow us to configure the bit rate. Now the default bit rate, and remember that's the communication speed for my CAN keypad, this is going to be 1 megabit per second. We can change this. So if you're working with, let's say, an ECU Masters CAN keypad, and that's set to a default of 500, you could jump in here and change this if all the other devices on your network were at 1 megabit per second. Or likewise, let's say you're trying to integrate something that's communicating on a 500 kilobit per second, you could switch your CAN keypad here to 500, so you're matching them. They should be all the same. Very important that all the devices on the network have the same bit rate, bit speed, or the bit rate here. Let's go and click 1 megabit per second, and we don't need to change anything. We don't need to send it. When I click send, that's going to be sending the changes into the CAN keypad on that CAN network, so it's programmed and it's communicating properly. I could send this. We can see here bit rate sent successfully. Please power cycle the device. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the power off the CAN keypad here. So let's give me a second. I'm going to go and remove the power, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect the power again. You can see the CAN keypad here coming up on screen is going through its cycling for all of the lighting on the backdrop for the CAN keypad. The next thing we have here is our node ID. The node ID is not going to be changed here from 21. We can keep that the same. This is going to be signifying in the network the node specific. If you have a different CAN keypad, it may have a different node ID. I can leave that alone. We don't need to change that. Now here's where we get some options that we want to pay attention to. We have our backlight color and brightness. Now we can see the option here blue. If we look in our option list, we see all these different colors. Right now, if I set it to none and I click send, we can see here that the CAN keypad has no backlighting. If I go here and I say red and I click send, notice that now the CAN keypad has different backlighting. So pretty straightforward. We can choose a lot of different options. We can see here's an amber orange. Click send. We can see we can just play around with the different colors. It's really going to be your specification of what you want in terms of that color. Here's a white. We can see what that looks like. So we see it's changing. See it's changing as we're going through. We have the options. This is going to be our backlight and brightness. Now the brightness here is the number. This is going to be between 0 and 63. So we have technically 64 total brightness levels to our backdrop. So if we go here, let's put it on something like a blue where I had it before. If I change my backdrop to a 2, the lower the number, the dimmer it's going to be. And then if I change this all the way to 63, this is going to be the brightest. So we can say it's very bright. So it's going to just depend on what the particular amount of brightness you're going to need in your vehicle. If you're going to be racing a lot of daylight, you might have a really bright color. If you're racing more at night, you might turn it down. Something like 40 or 30 is a compromise here. If I click send, you can see what that looks like. Now the key brightness, this is when we actually push the button and how bright it's going to be on the individual keys. I usually like to make this pretty bright, so I'm going to go and send it to 63 so we keep it right there. There's the startup LED show. We can see right now if I do complete or fast flash, if I set it to complete and click send right here, that's going to be when I power cycle my keypad, it's going to go through a startup LED show. So let me go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and remove the power from my CAN keypad real quick here. We can see it's going to depower. Then I'm going to turn it back on. You can see it's going to go through all of that light up sequence and it's going to go through its show. So we have some options here in terms of changing the LED look and the brightness and the colors. Very, very straightforward. There's a send default comm setup. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.